Hello friends and welcome back to a new video project, a new Let's Play or playthrough project here on Let's Play History, and this new project is Battles for Spain, a new game which has been published on the 5th of August this year, developed by Headquarters and published by Avalon Digital. They do lots of digital versions of board games, so go check them out and check out this game here. If you want to read a good review, go to wargamer.com. They did one and they recommended this game, and yeah, so I checked it out and it looked quite interesting, so I requested a review key, and thank you Miguel, who is the developer of this game. He provided me this key for free. And the Battles for Spain is set obviously in the Spanish Civil War, which lasted from 1936 to 39. Started at the 17th of July 1936 with a military coup in Spanish Morocco, followed by a coup or a rebellion, a coup attempt, I should say, in Spain itself. And yeah, this coup or rebellion was led by reactionary forces, so Catholic militias and politicians, and the Falange, which was a fascist party. And yeah, the major part of the army, the officers especially, and the American part of the Spanish army, which was consisted mainly of soldiers, American soldiers, and one should say they were the most experienced soldiers in the Spanish army at this point. The Spanish army on the Republican side, so I should explain what I mean with the Republican side. But major part of the army on the Republican side was untrained, had no experience, no good officers at all, and so the army broke down when the coup occurred, and the Republic, the democratic Spain at this point, only survived because of the quick reaction of worker unions, social democratic, socialist, communist and anarchist worker unions, who formed militias and sent them out to react against this coup. And everywhere they did in Spain, the coup failed. So in the major cities, Madrid, Barcelona, the coup failed, and then in all these areas where those worker unions were strong, yeah, all those industrialized areas, big cities, as I said, they crushed the rebellion. But this fact, the forming of all these militias, these political militias, led to a loss of control of the central Spanish state. So there was autonomy, not only this regional autonomy in the Basque area and in Catalonia, but also based on these political ideas and imaginations, which led to collectivization of the agrarian society, I should say, and the industrial, or the main industry in the big cities, Barcelona, as the major example. So, Battle for Spain, or let's talk a little bit about the Republican Spain first. So, when the coup occurred in 36, we have a popular front which was elected in democratic elections, and which consisted of numerous parties which joined forces to prevent the so-called nationalist parties, or the reactionary parties, to win the election. So we have there the Communist Party, the Socialist or Social Democratic Party, we have the Republican Union, the Republican List, and some other, the POUM, Partido Obrero de Unificación Marxista, which you might know from George Orwell. He served with their militias in the Aragon front, and other minor parties from Catalonia and so on. So really a mixture of different political ideas and concepts, and they joined forces to prevent the nationalists or reactionary forces to win this election. And then these reactionary forces, they feared that the Popular Front would start a socialist, social, or a communist revolution. So they had this, the Soviet Union and what happened in Russia was very present to them, and there had been attempts to I don't know if one should call it a revolution. Maybe one should. In 1934 there was an uprising, a socialist communist uprising, which was crushed back then, and so the reactionary forces feared that now a revolution would come, but the political program the Popular Front had was really moderate, so it aimed for social reforms, but not for a socialist or even communist revolution. Now, following the coup and the breakdown of the central state in the Republican Spain, that is actually what the reactionary triggered. So their coup led to revolutionary projects in the Republican Spain. And then there is the international aspect of this Spanish Civil War, the Western democratic forces, Great Britain, France, United States, and so on. They feared during this time, they feared that the National Socialist Germany and the Fascist Italy would start a war, and so they decided to go this way, which is known as appeasement policy. So they tried to give the Axis powers, as they were called later. Actually, this word Axis is from the Spanish Civil War. So at some point Mussolini said this in a speech during the Spanish Civil War, when the Italian troops and the German troops, the Legion Condor and the Corpo Truppe Volontarie, worked together in Spain. That was a major reason why Italy and Germany joined forces later on. Earlier, and maybe you don't know this, but earlier they were rivals on the question of Austria and other interesting points. So the what is it called in English? I don't know. So the crisis around the Czechoslovakian areas at the German border and so on. So the Axis is not the Axis from the beginning, but kind of formed or went in the direction of the Axis during the Spanish Civil War. And the Western Allies, or Western democratic powers, decided not to intervene in the Spanish Civil War and to block weapon deliveries or the export of weapons and import into the Spanish Republic, but thus actually helping the nationalist side, because the nationalists were supported by many big economic players who wanted to sell their equipment, weapons. Many US American trucks were delivered. Oil was delivered to the nationalists, and so on and so on. So it's there are so many interesting dimensions in the Spanish Civil War. So if you have the chance to pick up a book or something, go in, read it, and quite interesting. So now the first battle we will play will be Guadalajara 1937. So the Battle of Guadalajara. And how did the Civil War went before this battle? Actually, the nationalists came up from the south, and their best forces, as I said, came from Morocco. So the German airlift, which is supposed to be the first major airlift in history, brought major parts of the Spanish-American army over to the south of Spain, the Cadiz area, Sevilla and so on. And from there they headed north along the Portuguese border, and then they went to the east and wanted to take Madrid, the capital of Spain, because they hoped to end the war right away when taking Madrid. But they failed. So in November 36, they started a frontal attack on Madrid, which failed because of the militias. And the first International Brigade arrived then, but actually a few days after the fights. But in the propaganda, this had a really big impact on the Republican side. Look, there are international volunteers coming to our aid. So the international brigades are another really interesting part of this civil war, and their own history is really interesting, and how they interfere with the centralization attempts of the central Spanish government, the Republican government, and the rise of the Communist Party, which was mainly due to the Soviet Union being the only major power supporting the Republic with weapons and troops and training troops and ammunition, tanks, planes, all that stuff. So they could force the Republicans to give the Communist Party, which was really a minor party at the beginning of the war, a major role. And step by step the Communists, coordinated by the Comintern, so the Communist International, they rose to power, and that might have led to the demise of the Republic in the end, but that can of course be debated. So the frontal attack on Madrid failed in November 36. Then in the spring of 37, the nationalists made a plan to encircle Madrid, which they had not managed to do beforehand, and they planned to do this by an attack on the Jarama and the Guadalajara front. And actually this was planned to be a pincer move. Both operations should have taken place at the same time, but the attack of the Italian troop, the Corpo Truppe Volontarie at Guadalajara, came too late. And Franco, who was the main general of the nationalists, as they called them, the rebels, he knew that, but nonetheless he ordered to attack at the Jarama front, and the attack on Jarama was repelled. And I should say the Battle of Jarama started at the 6th of February 37 and ended on the 24th or so. And a month later, on the 8th of March 1937, the Battle of Guadalajara took place. The Italians tried to attack from the north, I guess. Let me check that. Yeah, from the northeast down in the direction of Guadalajara. Right. So that is March 37. Let's go in here into the game now. This game represents the Italian offensive that took place in March 1937 against the Republican defenders in the Brihuega area. The Italians' goal was to take Guadalajara in coordination with Franco's troops that would attack simultaneously at El Jarama in the vicinity of Madrid, the ultimate goal being the encirclement of the capital. That's right. So now we go in and we want to play the Republicans. Here I think I'm gonna show you all the battles at some point. And I want to play as the Republicans. This might be not, especially in this battle, not the side with the most action, but we will see. So, Guadalajara 1937 lasts 30 turns. Each turn represents half a day between 8th and 22nd of March 1937. The nationalist player has to take control of all areas along the main road from Tarazona to the two road areas at the east of the map. The Republican player has to avoid this and wait for reinforcements to allow him to launch a counterattack and eliminate as many Italian units as possible. Okay. And many things will happen now really quickly. And we will check them out later on. So here comes the surprise attack by the Italians. CDV against the 12th Division. We have bad weather. That means for the first 6 turns, airplanes and bombers and fighters can't be used. So supply, all their units are in supply. Okay, now they will move. Oh, an artillery barrage. Okay, they open fire on some of our defensive units. 1 hit, 2 hits, missed, missed. So only 2 hits, that is good news. And yeah, don't worry that all this is going so quick. We're gonna talk through this when it's our turn. So Civil War, which is kinda blitzkrieg, early blitzkrieg, gives them more movement, and the Soria Brigade attacks, they get a +1 combat modifier. So we let this run in the background, it's okay. You can see this is an area control, a war game. It's like a board game actually. And okay, we were hit 2 times, which is not good at all. And this is brigade level, I think. Another surprise attack with +1 combat modifier against Dimitrov, who panics and moves away. Okay. Oh, a 20mm flag. And then they have quite some artillery and 2 hits against Rohol. Oh no, I fear he's destroyed. That's not good. We lost our first unit. Okay, results and so on and so on. So now it's our turn, and now we can talk about how the game works and about the map and all these things. Those attacks were victorious by the nationalists and the Italians. So every turn, we will draw cards. And there are different types of cards. So some are, as you did see, like combat modifiers or movement modifiers. So they can be played during combat modifiers, or during the movement phase. Movement modifiers, and some of them are removed, as you can see here, from the deck after they have been played. Others can be drawn again. And then there are these cards highlighted here with this violet border, which have to be played upon. So when you draw them, like planes grounded by weather, it's the same the nationalist had, and it says for the first 6 turns we can't use our planes, although at this point in the Civil War the Republican side had the better planes, the Russian planes or Soviet planes, I-15 and I-16 and bombers and so on, but the fighters, they had the better fighters at this point. The Legion Condor comes in later. So we draw another card, and it's the 8th of March reinforcements card. We get some units, and we have to play this card. And we draw machine guns, which allows us to re-roll for 1 unit during combat. Okay, so now we have played all cards we had to play, and the card draw phase ends. Now we come to the reinforcement phase, and we get a leader, a Rubio, with 2 units, 2 battalions, and we can select one of these 2 areas where they should come in, and we have not looked at the map in detail, but I would say let them come in there. And additionally, we get a Guardia di Assalto and Marjal, a unit in Tarragona, down here on the road. Yeah, that's great. Now supply phase. As you can see, the red areas are nationalist supply areas and the green are Republican supply areas. Later on, when the weather gets better, we can use our planes from the airfield in Madrid, and the nationalists have some in Soria. Alright, let's end the supply phase, and then there is another card that has to be played right now in the movement phase. It's air bombardment. Before the bad weather started, the Italian managed to send some aircrafts to delay Republican units in the rearward. Okay, so those units back here are affected by these bombardments, and they have reduced movement points, I guess. Yes. All right. So let's talk about the units. So we have leaders, and this is a 1-star leader. I'm not sure. Do we have a 2-star leader right away? I don't think so. Barcelo is 1-star. Castro is 1-star. This guy is 1-star. And is there any other right now? I don't think so. Okay. So, and by the way, I have a fog of war activated, so we can't see how many and which kind of units the nationalists have in their stack or what they have behind the front line. So we have to live with that. I hope that's okay for you. We got these forced march cards, but let's talk about the game first before we decide what to do. So units. Combat value is on the left hand side, movement value is on the right hand side. Artillery is in support, which means they give you bonuses in combat, so modifiers I should say. And same for leaders. Units can be entrenched. This unit here is entrenched, which adds a -1 to any attack on this unit. What do we have else? Tanks and cavalry, if I'm not mistaken, give a +1 bonus to your side. And what else? A 1-star officer can command up to 5 combat units, and combat units are battalions, so not counting artillery, for example. Then here we can see these units are affected by the air bombardment, so their movement value is reduced to 0 and here to 1. And this is the combat value, as I said, if we are in combat and the modifiers have been applied. A d10 is rolled for each unit, each combat unit, and you have to roll equal or lower to the combat value of the unit. If you roll equal, one enemy unit will panic and retreat out of combat, and this is applied first. And then if you roll less than the combat value of the modified combat value of your unit, it's a hit. And that's the all relevant information about combat, actually, I would say. Of course, there can be cards played in the combat situation or before a battle starts. Roads give a bonus on movement. Some areas on the map give defensive modifiers and attack modifiers, and some have a limit for a unit. So you can see all this is difficult terrain, So no more than 6 combat units can enter any of these areas. Okay, great. So let's do our first turn, and I think then it's time to end this episode. But of course we gonna continue and play through this battle at least. I think we will also play the other battles. And by the way, this game system is based on the, what is it called? Wars Across the World system, which is also a digital game. And for Wars Across the World, there is also a strategic level Spanish Civil War DLC. So you need the base game Wars Across the World, which comes with several modules, and then you can buy additional DLCs or add-ons or whatever you want to call them. And Spain 1936 is one of them. Maybe at some point in time I will play this too. Okay, but now we are at Guadalajara and we have to form a defensive line, or some defensive lines maybe. But before we do this, there is some special rules. So areas with a star are victory point areas. So here are a few. Brihuega is one. Up here, Torre del Burgo and Hita, and so on, and also back here. So if we are able to counterattack and take these areas to the east, we would get some victory points for that. Then there is a dotted line here, this gray dotted line. This is the demarcation for nationalist and Italian troops. Although the Italians and Mussolini did send help for Franco and the nationalists or the rebels, they had quite some disputes about how to fight, where to fight, when to fight, who gets the honor of fighting and being victorious and so on. So here this line, this gray line, splits the forces. The Italians are only allowed to operate down here, and the nationalists up here in the north. So the nationalist units back here should move up north, I think. We will see. And is there anything else? Yeah, every scenario has this very neat, what is it called? Information sheet. That's a great idea. So there is some general introduction about the scenario, the forces here, the map board, terrain modifiers, and so on. We will talk about them during the playthrough, and then victory conditions, and that's interesting for us. So for the nationalists to gain a decisive victory, they need to hold the Francia Road. So all regions along the Francia Road, which leads to Guadalajara and Madrid, these dark gray areas, and they can also get a so-called secondary or fascist victory if they capture all these areas up here. So let's take a look at both maps. This is the Francia Road in the south, and that's the same starting area here, but then they go this road, yeah, up north and then over here. So that's the difference. And also they win if they have 35 victory points. We will win, the Republicans will win if we have 25 victory points, and we get 1 victory point per Corpo Truppe Volontarie unit eliminated. So we aim doing this. Supply sources, weather and so on. So everything is explained here. Reinforcements and some designer notes. And here is Miguel Santa Cruz, the designer of this game. So that's, yeah, quite a nice thing to have in a digital game, I think. So movement before we get to move our units, we have to play cards if we want to, and I'm not sure if we should. Let's take a look. These units are also penalized by the air bombardment, but we need to move them up as quick as possible, so I decide to play a forced march. Wait, was it for one stack? Gets it? Machine guns is a combat card, but they didn't get the bonus right away. Did I misclick now? I'm not sure. Let's continue. Yeah, must have been the case, right? I wanted to give it to this stack. Huh. Okay, might be my fault. So let's check this area here. We have the parts of the 2nd Division over here. Some nationalist forces there. Here is a supply. So we have supply sources down here. We don't depend on this. But defending it would always be good, right? I think we're gonna retreat to Las Inviernas here because it's behind a small river, which gives a defense bonus modifier if the nationalists, so the Italians, come and attack us here. We can't move this garrison. It's stationary. And as you can see, movement is simply by drag and drop, and the tooltip will show you how many movement points you have used already. That's quite nice to have. So they will move over here because they don't have... Can we actually... No. We can't undo a movement. So you have always to think carefully about what you want to do this turn. Very, very carefully first before you move your units. And then we have this communist militia here, and we will move it over here, I guess. Yep. Can they still entrench? Nope. They can't. We have T-26 Soviet tanks here. They will entrench and be joined by the artillery. And we need a leader there for this stack here really quickly. Because, I forgot to mention that. You can only attack with units if you have a leader with them. So we can have a look here. If I take here Rojos, I cannot engage in battle over here because I have no leader with Rojos. But Rojos will stay in this position. Yeah, it's a good defensive position with hills and so on. So hopefully he can hold this position. And I think we're gonna move the cavalry. Not enough movement points. Why is that? Oh, they can't move in the first turn. Okay. Too bad. Now up here. Jadraque. Henares. So I think would be great if we could hold this position. But maybe we should fall back to Cocoyudo. Can they move? Only Apuyo can move, right? So he can move along the road, moving 2, because road movement is only half a movement point. And Rubio comes with him, only Espartaco is affected by the air bombardment. Great. And here, this unit can't move. That's a shame. So I think we're gonna retreat here. Behind this river. Or shall we go south? We can't. No, let's stay there. They are entrenched. Maybe they can hold this position here, the bridge of Alcorlo. Sorry. So these are entrenched. But I think they will be overwhelmed by these units up here. In which area is this guy? And this here, between the two rivers. Rio Henares. We need to protect this area here. So maybe we should move down here. No defensive modifiers. Neither here, but they would have to cross the major river, so let's entrench. Oh, they were hit by the bombardment, by the initial bombardment. Ooh. Okay, that's tough. Now, these units, none of them can move. And none of these. So that's our turn. And yeah, that's the end of the first episode, friends. Sorry, it hasn't been that much of gameplay yet, but if you check out the next episode, there will be lots of gameplay, so hope to see you soon again. Bye.